We do a Sunday dinner at my house every Sunday. My sons come over and they want it. It's just great. It's better in the summer when the school's open and they don't go outside. But we all declared last Sunday, when are they cooking next Sunday? So we don't know if we're having sandwiches or whether it's going to be trying to open some
14 different things all getting no vegetables or anything.
Who knows?
Okay, we come on for the Court Services Advisory Board regular meeting. Today is Thursday, May 8th at 1:30. I will call this meeting to order. First, we'll do roll call.
Sherwood, Paul Foster from Miles Davidson.
Rick Warren. Ken Bridge.
Butch Freeman.
Vicky Behenna.
And Bridget Biffle. Notice that this meeting was properly posted on May 7th, 2025. It appears we do have quorum here. First on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding the minutes of March 13th, 2025.
Motion approved.
So I have a second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that will carry. And then number 2, we have discussion and possible action regarding a statistical report from team.
Yes, hi, I'm passing out the quarter report. I'm just taking one and passing it down. For the first quarter of this year. And we also have numbers from last month. Stuff as well, which will of course be included in the next quarter's report. There we go.
Thank you.
Everything's going well. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Is there anything that should be standing out on these reports to us?
Everything is staying pretty stable. If you divide out the quarterly numbers by our monthly number, I think everything is looking pretty similar. So I think things are just kind of flowing in a good direction. Our failure to appear rate is a little lower in April than it was for last quarter, so that's always good. But other than that, everything's going pretty well.
What do you attribute the decrease in failure to appear and appearance rate? What do you attribute that to?
Sure. Well, so it's only a 2%, so it's not a major discrepancy or difference. It does fluctuate a few percentage points each month, but we always like it to be lower every month. So I think our case managers do a great job of making sure that they're staying in contact with all the participants who are in the program. We do have automatic text and email reminders that get sent out for every court date. So I think just all of those processes are working pretty well.
Have you started using the assessment tool already?
We have not.
Okay.
We are waiting. We've been discussing with Ms. Biffle on finding a date where the judges can be trained on that. We want to make sure that all of our judicial partners know what they're looking at before we start using it. Our staff is trained and ready to go. We just want to make sure that all of the partners and everyone who needs to know what they're looking at are aware when we start implementing that.
Thank you.
On this, so total individual screen, 1392.
Mhm.
And the recommendations were 237.
Yes.
Do we know why more of them weren't made? Is it just history and background? That means 1,100 weren't even recommended to police.
Yes. So there are a lot that when we receive feedback from the district attorney's office saying denied, then we can always pass that information on to the public defender. But at that point, if the DA's office is not on board with the recommendation, then we don't make the recommendation.
So you asked the DA about 1,390.
Yeah, they review we have 2 lawyers that review
Pretty much
all the PC affidavits, all the charges, the criminal history.
What's a unique participant?
So we're looking at how many actual participants were in the program as opposed to how many cases. Some of them may have like a revocation as well as a new charge or something
Okay.
like that, so we're not
I got
counting, we're not duplicating.
I got you. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And also when it says individual screened, those are not individuals that fall within that list. Like those are individuals with non-violent crimes.
Those are individuals who were screened by the jail staff. So those are the ones that are on the list of offenses that can be screened.
I just looked at that because I know our jail population has been around 1,400, 1,500, and so that looks like most individuals are being held on non-violent crimes, and that's just a lot of people to screen. And I would say eligible for release, in my opinion.
We are hoping that the PSA, so the evidence-based risk assessment tool, is going to help with that. Because that's going to give the district attorneys something based on evidence that they can look at to see what category does this person fall in, what is their actual percentage risk of failure to appear or to potentially have a new criminal arrest. I think that will help with that a lot. So that if they see, oh, this person's only a level 1, okay, well, maybe I don't object. Maybe I say you need conditions, but I'm not going to object. So we're hoping that will.
Anybody have any other questions?
No.
Okay, do we have any citizen participation? Any board comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That was the shortest meeting we've ever had.
I attributed it all to Ken.
Make it. I'm here to streamline things. How do you get to it?
It's the next tab at the top. It's at the top, yeah. There we go.
It's only got one tab.
Did you close out all your tabs?
I like to say I'll hire people to do this.
Amen. Amen to that. Have you seen her?
We're one more.
Are we taking?
Are you still in the meeting?
You tell me. I don't care. What do you want me to do? I'm not on the board, so.
Do we have a plan for this?
I'm still moving.
Okay.
Okay, well then I would leave. I thought you guys had one.
Good to see you, kid.
Hey, treatment.
This one's mine.
Yeah, I was watching.
Show my alibi as quickly as I could.
That's the county property.
The Treatment Courts Advisory Board regular meeting, today's Thursday.
Paul Foster for Miles Davidson.
Rick Warren.
Butch Freeman.
Vicky Behena.
And Bridget Bickle. Notice of this meeting was properly posted on May 7th, 2025. First on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding the minutes of March 13th, 2025.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That will carry. Second, we have discussion and possible action regarding the approval of a board to oversee the operation of treatment courts as requested by Ms. Lee.
So I passed out a really rough, ugly draft of a Oklahoma County, I can't remember what we call it, Oklahoma County Diversion Court Board, Oversight Board. This idea, it evolved, or actually initiated is maybe the better word, in right after I took office, and talking with Bob Ravitz, we were discussing how Tulsa was doing their diversion courts, what kind of oversight they had. And so we came upon the idea of maybe forming a governing board. And again, the purpose of it is not to add another layer of management or meetings, but to provide a board that would provide consistency for our treatment courts into the future. So Tulsa has their diversion court set up under a division of the courts. Ours is just kind of, it's a private-public partnership is what we have. And so we thought forming an oversight board would be something that would give it the stability. We originally put an interlocutory agreement together with a 3-member board. It would have been the presiding judge, the PD's office, and the DA's office. And then my civil division advised me that we would have to meet open meetings, which would be a problem because Bridget and I at the time, Bob and I were talking all the time. Bridget and I have meetings right now with Judge Ogden, which would create all sorts of issues about what we were meeting about. So we backed off that. It kind of fell off the rails. I told Bridget I wanted to bring it up and discuss again with this group. I don't know if there is a desire to have an oversight board. I think there should be, as I said, for stability moving forward. The organization is working great now. Tony has taken this bull by the horn. But I still think that there ought to be a governing body that makes decisions about, if we add a new court, what that's going to look like, review policies for that court. If we've got issues regarding a vendor, rather than just putting it on Tony, this board would be the board that would decide, choose between vendors or if there was an issue or not. So that's my presentation. I'm happy. I gave you a copy of this, like I said, of a very ugly draft. Obviously, I didn't give you time to review it. So I would suggest that everybody take a moment to look at it, see what that minute or that document or what interlocal agreement provides for. And then maybe what we can do is table the discussion. I'm happy to answer any questions right now, but we table the discussion maybe until next time so we can give you all the opportunity to at least absorb the information and decide if this is something we want to do. So
what would be the makeup?
Well, and that's something that we need to discuss. I don't think it can be a 3-member board. Originally, when Bridget and I were talking about it, we decided maybe the presiding judges over the drug court and the mental health court and co-op would be on it. I don't think Judge Ogden likes that idea for judicial immunity. I don't think he felt that those members of the judiciary should be on the governing board. So we've talked about, I don't want to have, an idea where we've got somebody coming in that doesn't know anything about our diversions courts. We've talked about maybe having a participant on it. We've talked about maybe right now in the document, Tony is a non-voting member. Maybe as the executive director and the program director for diversion courts, he comes on it. I think at a minimum, we need 5 members on that board. I'd love to see somebody from BET or the budget board on there because we will be discussing revenue and how that money is going to be divided up among the various private partners that we have. And so no decisions been made. Like I said, I just wanted to bring it up, to bring it the attention. We've never discussed it at this convening before. And I think it's something I needed to put on the radar. And again, I'm looking at providing a stable structure for these diversion courts, these treatment courts, moving well past all of us.
As an advisory board, is this something the commissioners would have to vote on?
Ultimately, yeah.
So the funding for these various programs would then go through this board. And would it come to this board then to be approved?
That's not my vision. My vision would be, and ultimately it's happening right now, Tony, Madison, people from my office, Bridget, we all get together and we decide, like when we were talking about the funding on the 781 money, where it should be broken out, where we need to move funds through. So that's what I kind of wanted to take off this advisory committee. If we have issues that we need to discuss and get advice, everybody's input, we can do that. But ultimately, it would be this governing board's responsibility to make those decisions.
I think I'd kind of like to have the opportunity, as you mentioned, and as you're offering to do, is to kind of go over it and
Sure.
get some thought.
Sure. So I move that we table it for further discussion. Defer? Okay, she's telling me I need to defer.
Second.
Until
Next time?
next meeting.
Okay, so there's been a motion to defer this until the next meeting, so everyone can look over it. And there's been a second, all in favor, all opposed. And we'll give it time to discuss that. Next is discussion and possible action regarding the recommendation to the OCC to establish an indigent fund for GPS monitoring for defendants who are ordered to GPS and monitored by Kathy Taylor.
Okay, so Kathy is in the room and I'd like for her to discuss for you what the issues are, but let me just give you a general broad brush. So team has individual that they are monitoring pretrial releases that are on GPS. This is something totally different. So Kathy monitors individuals that are, I consider, high-risk defendants. Some of the individuals that Kathy monitors are participating on investigations that are continuing. And so she gets requests sometimes directly from the court to monitor this individual, this high-risk defendant, and put a GPS on. Many times the court will order the individuals to pay for the GPS. I mean, it's expensive daily. Well, the equipment's expensive and daily it can be expensive. But there are a number of individuals, and I want her to give you all the numbers, where people just do not have the financial resources to be able to pay for the equipment and or the daily expense. Previously, the county had with court services, I think, had an indigent fund that they could pull from to pay for the equipment and the monitoring, because we have to pay that to another company. I mean, we don't get it free just because we've got the device. We still have to pay the company. And so that indigent fund has dwindled. I think maybe it's even moved somewhere else. All I'm asking is for us to consider requesting that, and I don't know if the request goes to BET or the budget board or the commissioners directly, but that the county create an indigent fund for those individuals where the court finds the person does not have the financial resources to have a GPS. In many of these cases, GPS is absolutely critical. I mean, that's the only way the judge is going to let them out. That's the only way maybe law enforcement and the DA's office is going to agree to let them out. And so I think it's critical, but it's now kind of fallen through the cracks, and there's no money available to pay for this equipment. And Kathy, do you mind just giving us the numbers right now? How many people you have been asked to monitor directly from the court?
All of the ones that I have, there's 34 that I currently monitor. One is not on the GPS. She's taken off the GPS, but the judge ordered her to check in with me once a month. But the rest of the 33, they have to check in with me. They are court ordered by the judge. Out of those, I have 19 of those that had to post their own bond. 15 of them were sent without having to post a bond. I've got 5 pending, waiting to go on. As soon as they post their bonds, some of those bonds are as high as $750,000 to $1 million, just depending on the charges. The charges that are being monitored, these are not sought out or, like team goes and they do a criteria and everything. I don't do that. These are ones that either they're agreements, they're participating, or I even have some of them that are, their lives are at risk, so they're in other states. 27 of those are self-pay that, they're on either what is called an active or passive unit. Passive units are $6 a day. Active units are $12 a day. 7 of them right now are indigents, and I have at least 5 that they're on, disability of some kind, and they're on, had to post a bond, and they've got fees on top of it, and they're struggling. So current to date, I was moved over to the DA's office August 1st, and from August 1st to Today, I've collected $23,575. However, if I start looking at, as of May 1st, how much is owed, $18,345.
And just so that you know, Kathy and I had a discussion today. She reminded me that we need to get resolved what happens when somebody's been ordered to pay for their equipment and is not, but has the financial means to pay, but they're just not. So we'll probably present some sort of resolution, but there are still a number of people that are out on GPS monitoring, ordered by the port to be monitored by Kathy, that do not have the funds to pay. And I mean, I think it's necessary for us to suggest to the county that they maintain an indigent defense fund.
We've had money in that fund before. It's not so much in this case, like you're saying, 27 of 34 are self-pay. The issue has been the number that just keeps going up with team. Almost all of them are indigent. And what happens when, whatever money that's put into that, what happens when that money is running?
I understand that. I'm not suggesting team has a philosophy, and I guess it's evidence-based. It's not just your philosophy, but people that do pretrial release, that you do not charge the individual for the GPS device if the GPS is required or ordered by the court. Kathy is completely different. So this fund would be completely just the individuals that the court orders her to monitor, because the court is specifically requiring them to have a GPS device. Go ahead, Kathy, you wanted to.
Previously, team did have GPS before, when I was with Court Services. They didn't monitor them themselves. They were ordered to me, and I monitored them for team on an indigent basis. So there was a $50,000 indigent fund that we had before. If you'll look over the past 2 years, you'll see where in prior years we didn't pull from that very much, and then it went up and it started getting drained. That's because I was watching for treatment courts, team, and all of those are considered indigent. I don't normally watch for treatment courts anymore. I do have one. I don't know why she was sent to me, but Judge Stoner said you're going to her. So I used to have 30 to 40 of them that were indigent at a time. I have 7 right now. Like I said, I have about 5 to 7 possibly that should be. Usually, if they have to post a bond, the judge orders them to pay for it themselves. But I have special cases like medical. I have one that's on a medical right now. He can't work, and he didn't have to post a bond to get out, but yet it's robbery with a firearm, multiple cases. He's a risk. That's why I have it. Some of these that I have are on state cases, but they are working federal level doing other things. So it's all of these people that I have, this indigent shouldn't pull as much as what it did before.
The question still stands though. I mean, if I understand there are circumstances that require GPS monitoring, there are individuals who are indigent, absolutely cannot. But whether we're talking team or whether we're talking a separate fund, so much goes into that fund. What happens when those funds are spent?
I guess the judge can't order them released if they're going to be on GPS.
Kind of let me ask a previous question, and that is, you mentioned a $50,000 fund. Where'd the money come from for that?
The budget evaluation team, they set aside that money for the general fund.
Oh, did they really? Okay, so we are currently funding this right now.
We were, I'd always told back then, when Grant was running it, if you need more money, come to us and let us know. I think he had to go and actually ask one time, but for the most part, I never really went over that.
So the county the county at least has been and continues to fund this to the tune of $50,000 apparently.
My understanding when I moved over to the DA's office is that $50,000 was still there. I don't know now where any of that stands. I'm not, I will collect the funds and send over to be deposited, but I have no idea what's in there.
And
I
then
think
of the stuff
some
you
money
wanted
was
to
being
discuss.
taken out of it because what we did is before court services had like one set of ankle monitors, and when we switched to team and the DA's office, all of a sudden we're paying for two separate sets of electronics or monitoring, and so the price is much more than it was. My concern is obviously the county and where do we get this money? And
That's my concern.
and I don't ever want anyone who's indigent to have to stay in jail because they can't afford it. So I do want indigent to be paid for, but then if we're giving money for this, then we also have to give money to team. And I mean, that's the biggest thing because there are indigent people on team too. And so if we do give to one, we have to give to both. Now, I do think we should give to indigent and they should have that. I will tell everyone I talk to Tony McLean about, is there any possibility out of our 781 funds or the money that's left over, is there any way like the treatment court monitors, like we can pull any money from that because essentially we invoice it from ODMH. And so I've kind of thrown out the idea to Vicki, like, hey, is there money from somewhere else that we can use for those things? So we're looking into that, but I agree it's something we need to be thinking about because we do need money for this. But
And there's also the question of damaged or
Right,
broken
that's right,
monitors
That's
that
right.
the county has also been paying.
that's right. That's right. I mean, the alternative is that, people just don't get out of the county jail. And, any work that somebody is doing and participating with, law enforcement or the DA's office, that won't happen.
It's far more expensive to people in the county jail.
Agreed.
Monitor.
It's what now?
More expensive to leave them in the county
Oh,
jail.
without a doubt. Well, I totally agree with that.
With our county jail, it's less cruel.
And do you think this is something, as far as the next step goes, that should go before, as an agenda item for BET for discussion with a recommendation to budget board?
Yes, I mean, I'm not sure of the process, but yes, this committee needs to make a recommendation to whether it's BET or the budget board directly, that we reserve some funds for indigent GPS monitoring.
Does the budget board have to ask BET to look at it?
No, they're just asking them to look at it during part of the process.
I'll make a motion to put this on as an agenda item for the next BET.
Second.
Thank you.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Do you want to put that on or do you want me to?
Why don't, do you mind doing that?
No, no.
Okay. Oh, we'll be there to talk about it.
And then number 4 on the agenda, we have discussion and possible action regarding an update for the treatment courts regarding operations.
So I made handouts of all these documents that are the links in there, just so it'd be a little bit easier rather than clicking through each one of them. So this rolls straight through just like these slides do. So the first set of data is going to be applications to the treatment court. So you can scroll through. We have it broken down by the total applications. This is for March and April. Then the next page is going to be the demographics of the applicants. The next page will be the approvals by the courts. Then we'll have the approval demographics, the denials, and then the denial demographics. So that's what that portion is. So I'll let you guys glance through those and see if you have any questions for Cohen since he prepped all this data.
When it says approvals and then total fled, is that just because we're backed up on the ones that have been approved, or?
Yeah, so the process is that once we get them approved, so let's say little Scott Smith gets approved for drug court, then what he would need to do is he would need to attend an orientation. And we have those every other Friday in Judge Stoner's courtroom. So his attorney would be notified whether it's a public defender or an actual private attorney. If they're in custody, we'll go and meet them in custody and do the orientation. If they're out of custody, they'll need to show up at Judge Stoner's courtroom on those days. And that is where we go over the whole program or whichever court they're pleading in. So these are your expectations. This is what's gonna, the fees that it's gonna be associated with it. This is, what it's gonna look like. What questions do you have? So we require that they go through that before they plea in so that they know what they're pleading into versus pleading into and then getting the orientation of you have to do X amount of drug testing, you have to be required to go to treatment. So what we see is that we approve individuals, and we see this mostly with the private attorneys, and me, Madison, and Cohen met yesterday to streamline this, to really focus on how do we get the private attorneys in. So what will happen is they'll contact the private attorneys via email that they provided us and say, hey, your person's good to go. Get them to an orientation, and then they don't show up to orientation. They don't show up to orientation. And then we have to start calling them. So we're working on getting a refined process to where we can work with the private attorneys. The ones that are in custody, they're more than willing to come to anything we ask them to, and because they're ready to get out of jail. So, they'll show up and they'll get pled in pretty fast, but it's the private attorneys. And then once they go through orientation, their private attorney will need to get them a plea date. So that's another item, is that some of the attorneys sometimes are a little slow to get the plea dates. So we're working again on a back-end process. Whoever shows up to orientation, we're going to have Judge Stoner or Judge Burton's bailiff actually reach out to them and say, hey, we need this. Some of the process change we have is that we would say, when would you like to plead them in? Versus us saying, here's the next two plea dates. Which one is your client going to be at? Same thing with the orientation. We would say, hey, you need to do orientation. We have them every other Friday, so make sure they show up. So we're reaching out to them saying, hey, orientation, here's the next two dates. So which one is your participant or your client going to show up to? So that's where you see the approvals versus the pled in, that we have kind of a little bit of an obstacle there.
What are the most common reasons for denials?
For denials, it's not on it.
So most of them are criminal. But
Yeah.
the pled on here is actually people who pled to their charges before they were approved or denied.
Oh, okay. So that's ones that, like an application. So let's say that your attorney submits an application and we're in the process, we get the offender screening, the DA's got it, and then for whatever reason, them and their attorney decide that they're going to just take the plea that the DA's office got. So it's not the pled in, So the denial reasons, we can start adding those, but you see a lot of like low, on the offender screening, it'll be like low substance use, or maybe they, like if they're trying to apply in the DUI court, they just don't meet the standards. And so we log all of those, so we can get you the top reasons next time for the next meeting. We just haven't had anybody ask, but we can add that on there. We're required to submit those to the Department of Mental Health every time that we get a denial, so it's easy for us to pull that and track that data. There's some of them that just, it's just not agreed upon based on what their charges are. Attorneys will still apply them even though they may have some charges that we just don't really, that's just not viewed. So any other questions on that? All right, is that what you guys are looking for going forward? Is this detail of data, or as far as the applications and then the denial reasons, like maybe the top 10?
I would like to see that, or even by race. I know on this approval demographics, it has, white 47.9% approvals, black 14.6% approvals, but then when we're looking at the denials, white 33%, so it's about equal between approvals and denials, and then black 34.4% of denials. So I'd be interested to see the denials and maybe even by race potentially, if there's any data on that.
Definitely. All right. Any other questions on that? All right. Next one is the 781 expense update. We've got all the information in there. You'll see a couple of the categories still remerged. shows 0 expenses. We got their MOU completed. So I have 3 invoices for Vicky to sign after this. We'll get them paid some of their money. They will expend all their money in the months that are still available based on their needs. So. Let me know if you have any questions on that.
If they do not expend all their money, what happens at that point? Is there any rollback at all? Does it get diverted to another issue or what?
So currently we're billing in arrears, so it has to be spent to actually bill it. So we want like where, let's say a category is to say $10,000. So we'll just use this data entry contract down here. So it's got $10,000 budgeted for its data entry and for any electronic database services is what's defined in the RFP. So let's say that we didn't spend that $10,000, we would just have not used it and we wouldn't bill ODMH for it, so we would never get that. That $10,000 is earmarked to be spent. We're in works on a contract right now for with our database system, so that will actually be spent. But that's what actually happens. Is the first set of money we got in fiscal year 24 was just a here's the money. You've got to have services set up. You've got agreements with Team and D-Hub. They need to hire people, so here it is. Fiscal year 25 went to an actual billing in arrears where we invoice them. With Jessica, we got all of our July through February invoices all submitted, and then that money will go back in once we get it to actually allow us to continue to operate with the funding for each of the categories. So we have to spend just in that category. So if there's a category that we like decide or we figure out that, hey, this one, we're not spending this money, we're not going to utilize this, then there's a process for us to move that money to a different category through ODMH and through the Board of County Commissioners.
And I'll just use remerge as an example.
Yeah.
Is there a reason that they haven't expended any of that? Is there just not a need?
There is a need. So part of it was the change in leadership over there. They had some change in leadership from July through October. They finally placed somebody, I think, in December. So nobody over there had actually worked with us to get an MOU. So we've got the MOU in place. They had other funding. They're now needing this funding to fill in where they didn't. So that was actually just signed. Like I said, I've got January, February, and March over here. So we're on track. We and Remerge had several meetings. We're on track to actually have that all expended for that time period between transportation, housing, and training. So,
and it had taken a little longer because they had 5,000 in drug testing, but they actually didn't need that money, and so we got approval and went back and redid that. So it'd be categories that they can actually use it from.
Okay.
And when I was talking about the ankle monitors or potentially, so any of these categories, that's kind of where I was. If we don't use money out of any of these categories, of course, we would have to get approval of ODMH and BOCC, but I never want to leave money on the table and us not invoice from ODMH. So even though it's 2 months, if we could pull down money in your back date, get money for those things. That's kind of why I was looking at where is there some, maybe if there was pretrial money or if there was, money from something that we could have to move it around.
It's just not a quick process whenever we want to move the categories, because first we have to figure it out. We go to the Board of County Commissioners, get on their agenda, have them approve it. Then we send it to ODMH and say, okay, here's what we want to move. It's this to this. If there's already a category built, if there's not, then we have to write a different summary. This is okay. We want to take this money and now we want to create this category, and this is how it's going to impact. And then at that point, we submit the Board of County Commissioners approved minutes, the actual request to ODMH, and then they have a board that reviews it and gets back to us. So
The allocated funds, that first category here, the allocated funds is basically approved funds. They are not given to us.
correct.
That just gives us permission to ask to draw against them.
Right,
but
yeah,
the dollars we don't actually get
right, yeah. And we
until
have
it
to,
arrears.
yeah, and we have to show all the invoices to support it. So we just don't send them a thing and say, hey, I need 100K out of this. We send them in like, like where the DA's office, they send me an invoice every month. I pay them, then I turn around and I bill ODMH for this, so we get it back in the account so that we have the money to keep rolling forward.
And so like in the pretrial category for team, that wouldn't be moving in categories if they have money left over. Right now they have percent remaining. I think it's 47%, but we only have, 4 months to go or so, a couple of months. And so
Yeah.
if there is any money, that might be a solution to ankle monitors. And it might not cover the whole thing, but it could go towards DA's office and team, like splitting or covering that cost.
And some of the, and me and Melissa Hendricks and Chris Steele have talked about, I don't know if Jamie was in this, is that some of the treatment court individuals that are put on GPS, so anybody that's in Dreams Court, Drug Court, DUI Court, if they're put on an actual GPS, which I'll get with you to find out why you're monitoring one of ours. It should be monitored by our folks, but they are actually billing against the SEO and the actual supervision. We started that, I think, about a month ago. So we had money in there and it's under supervision. So we allowed them to start billing that. So some of that has been absorbed by the treatment board. So I don't know if that you've been aware of that, but that was just something that we started last month. So I think I've seen one invoice for it so far. So that will help some of that strain that we were having before for just indigent, because I know the judges thought that as well. I said, hey, there's a pot of indigent money over here. So some of them, and we've had educational conversations with the judges of like, hey, we say go get a GPS, but just know that it's not free. There's not an indigent pot anymore. That somebody's paying for this, and this is where it's coming from. So, all right. Any other questions on 781? All right. The next is just the drug court data. We've got the just the breakdown, male, female, basically the rate in and out that we had talked about before. They either admitted, graduated, terminated, and then we've got that broken down for drug court, and then you'll see the DUI court one after that. And let me know if you have any questions on that. Then the next slide would be the drug court, DUI court expenses. So we have the 781 money, which goes for the specific categories. This is the ODMH funds that go for the salaries of the coordinators, office supplies, general expenses like graduation, awards, salaries. We did have transportation in this because it was prior to us getting the transportation money in the 781, so there's a little bit in there. Drug testing comes out of this, and then as the last meeting, Judge Stoner had mentioned that we get money back from where people pay their user fees, and then they pay money for their drug testing. That's the credit year to date of what we've got back. So we've spent out $78,000, and we've collected $58,000 for user fees and for drug testing. So that'll offset some of that expense there. So we don't have a whole lot of categories in there because we spend so much out of our so much of our expenses go out of 781. So we're fortunate to have that. So, all right. The next we move into Dreams Court. Same scenario. The data, male, female, race, ethnicity, the ins and outs there. And so I'll give you a chance to look at that. Do you have any questions? And then the last one is gonna be the Greens Court. So we have three different accounts that we work out of. We have the 781 account that's for some expenses. We have the 1281, which is the drug court, DUI court. And then we also have 1284, which is the mental health or Dreams Court fund account. So we had switched over mid-year to where all our funds were now considered treatment court. So all our funds go into the 1281 from our ODMH contract. But we still have substantial money in this Dreams Court account. So we spend out of that for the drug testing for Dreams Court. The $16,500 that you see on the credit for drug testing, that is a credit that we get from Hunter Labs, and that pays for part of the drug testing for the collection of the sample. So we use two different labs in Dreams Court. We have the collection of the sample, then we have the testing of the sample. And the reason for that is that the lab that does the testing of the samples has greater ability to check for medications and compliance as far as that. So that's a credit that we get back that offsets what we actually spent for that. So that's where you see the 16.5. Just wanted to be as transparent as we could. Then training, we have that, salaries, equipment, and this is all from July 1st to now. And then the mental health court account, there was one deposit before we split it out to where it was just all treatment court and going into one account. So.
They want to change that reporting period to 7/1/24. So 7/1/25.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. All right. Any other questions on any of this? All right. That's what we have. So thank you.
And so we just went through
Pretty much.
number 4, number 5, number 6.
You should get that ready, right?
Motion to accept.
With all of those.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the report in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion will pass. And then next we have number 9, discussion and possible action regarding Veterans Treatment Court statistical reports.
Good afternoon, everyone. Since our last report, we've added 2 veterans to our court. We've graduated 3, and we've had 0 unsuccessful since 3/10/25. 44 active in the program. We have 1 on a 6-month DOC sanction, 1 fed custody, and 2 participants AWOL. AWOL numbers down just a little bit. We got a couple back. And then previously it's been requested to have some application stats here. Since the last meeting, we've received 13 apps for our VETS programs. Of those, we've had 5 that are eligible for BTC, 6 that were eligible for our VET version program. We've had 8 declined, and we still have 3 pending. This is as of Monday.
Who's declining them?
Pardon?
Who's declining them?
Uh,
Who you get? DA's office. Oh, never mind. I think I ask that every month. I'm just waiting for the answer to change.
Could we potentially get some reasons next time for most of the declines if it's just criminal history?
Absolutely.
That way we can have someone put pressure on someone.
Well,
Motion to accept the report.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Then we have discussion and possible action regarding the street report budget.
So, budget report was supposed to come from our finance guy, and I do not have a current report of that. I can tell you what we have allocated for our grant, though. And kind of as we discussed last time, like, it's not going to change. It's very similar to what Tony was saying, where we have funds that are already allocated for the things that we're spending money on. We're just getting invoiced for it. So, I wish I had a visual aid for you right now, but I can tell you just kind of off the top that it's broken down, 4-year grant, just a little under $250,000 each year. We have a breakdown of 25% of a prosecutor, 60% of coordinator salary, 15% of a grant administrator. We have public defender funds out of there as well. Program evaluation that's upcoming that will cost us about $40,000. And then we have our travel equipment supplies, all these different things. Again, I apologize for the lack of visual aid on this one, but I'll get that for you next time.
And that's federal grant.
It is BJA.
Any questions about that?
Thank you.
Is there any citizen participation? Any board comment? New business?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor?
What would be